What's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging out with us on a Friday night. We're going to get started here. Just one second. All right. Make sure I have my trusty companion here. Benjamin is sitting shotgun. I wanted to. We're having some issues on our. It's the wind. It
Okay, I'm
sounds
gonna.
great. No.
I apologize.
It sounds great.
I'm
Be
in a
outside.
I'm in a tough spot. I'm walking the 18th fairway of Harbortown Links down in Hilton Head Island, which is right outside my in-laws' place. So I'll just step off the fairway and do a little alley.
I love it. As I said, we were talking before the show started. That's a hell of a plan. Um,
Yeah.
and in these topsy turvy times, on behalf of Tim Strachan and Kevin Ricca, I am Ken Marangolo. This is the WCAC Spectacular Friday Night with Keith Urgo, pride of Gonzaga. Welcome to the show, Keith, and thanks for being on. I know we've been trying to do this. It's been a busy season for you, and it occurred to me that I reached out to you this morning because I thought, as did so many of us from this area, that this was going to be that this could have potentially been a big day for all of college sports, but certainly for you up at Penn State.
Yeah.
Um, and don't want to let that get lost because you guys had a great season. First assistant on the bench this year, Keith. And I mean, maybe let's talk a little bit. Let's start things off by um, give us some of that good news. Share with us kind of how awesome that was to get that nod and to really get things underway um, up there in PA.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was obviously a historical season for Penn State. It was only the second 20-plus win season in the last 3 years. For us, it was 76 wins. Our senior class is the winningest in program Big Ten history. Our team was ready to compete in the postseason, the Big Ten and the NCAAs. We had an 8-game winning streak in the middle of the year, and what we believe by far was the toughest conference in the country. We were dominant for a stretch, and obviously anything it was abruptly ended. Season
Sure.
obviously came to a disappointing end. We had pretty much locked up the NCAA bid early February. It was just, but it wasn't just about one season for us, and that's why it's so difficult to swallow. Just because, for some of us, this is our ninth season, and we had been fortunate enough to last this long at Penn State. As you guys are aware, man, in the college landscape, that's a long time to not make a postseason other than an NIT. Um, so it had taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to finally build our program, and we had a vision for this, and we had reached the pinnacle. We had pretty much just cemented it in February. It was a goal of ours, and at one point we were fighting for a Big Ten championship. Things that Penn State is just not used to. So it was just an unbelievable support throughout the years, and not only us, but the fans were about to reap the rewards of success also.
Sure.
Which is it's just look, it's an unprecedented situation. It's a global crisis. It puts basketball kind of in perspective, but obviously it still hurts because we had broken a number of records at Penn State for Penn State basketball this year. And obviously, it hurts for our seniors, guys like Lamar Stevens that everybody knows, but Mike Watkins, Curtis Jones, and Grant Hazel, who's a preferred walk-on for us for the last 4 years. Everybody was going to get a chance to hear our name called last Sunday. And according to Lenardi, we were playing at 9:40 last night against NC State. So, we all watched the little virtual thing that's going on online right now. We were a little disappointed about the 40. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but there's a virtual tournament going on, and they had us losing to NC State with 40 free throws taken by NC State.
I don't agree with it at all. What was that? Hey Keith, what was that? What seed was that? That wasn't the 5-12 game, was it?
Yeah, it was a 5-12.
Yep.
So we were going in as a 5. I mean, obviously it's disappointing, but there's a lot to hang our hat on, and we're going to have an incredible celebration at some point when we're able to all get back together.
Well, a lot of guys around here are super proud of you. We share in your success to the best of our abilities. Um, I I uh, I was being just a little facetious. I mean, I'm not going to spend the whole show talking about how great your hair was because it was great. It was like some of the best hair in the WCAC. I'd have to say at least top 10, top 15 hair. We won't go down that road all the way. I want to also make sure people understand when they see Keith. You know, I I think the lesson I learned from you athletically, if that's even possible, because you're an amazing athlete, was how much technique factors into sports. And I don't want to get off into such a serious thing, but we're not that much different in size, and yet you would crank the softball so far over the fence on the regular, and I didn't expect it when we first were playing. And I was talking to Terry McGann, who by the way says hi, and is
He's
also
the best.
crazy proud of you. How if you got up after Keith, the bases were probably going to be empty because he probably just cranked one, and it was almost like you did it just to be like, you know what? Don't look at me like that. I'm going over the fence, and it was always fun to play sports with you. It's always good not to have to guard you. Obviously, in the BFFL, I think you played a couple of games in that league, if I'm not mistaken.
I did. I had a costly fumble in the playoffs. I was never invited back. It's crushing
Big
blow.
mistake. First of all, the Groovy Mules would have always been happy to have had you on our team, and any team that was dumb enough to let you go, Keith. Um, So okay, so i it's just so surreal. We kind of already touched on it. The fact that the NCAA tournament, we'd be in day two right now. Anyone who's a
Yeah.
sports fan knows exactly where they would be right now. They'd be on the back end of just a hellacious 36 hours of nonstop gasping for breath. Watching these kids surprise us and stun us. Brian Sanders obviously also says, "What's up?" Andrew Vines has some questions that I will get to. I'm going to get to it, Andrew, I promise. Um,
These guys are the best. Now
oh, yeah.
that's the best part of the WCAC, man. When you're in the thick of it, you want to kill each other. But as we've all gotten older, and it seems to translate, it doesn't matter. I got older brothers that were in the WCAC, CAC years ago. They're 10 to 15 years older than I am, and their friends from other schools are best friends now. And
Yeah.
and it's just the way that you take pride in the WCAC, but we all follow each other and we root for each other professionally and now in our adult lives. And how many close friends didn't go to Gonzaga, but were in the WCAC as our rivals in high school and are very good friends of mine now. It's kind of a special little bond that we all have in that area. It's remarkable, man.
It's so
unlike
much fun.
anywhere else.
It's so
Unlike
much fun.
anywhere else.
It's you know what, Keith? That's what I was going to ask you. Is it like anywhere else? So, I'm still in the bubble. Proud, obviously. I always everyone gives me a hard time because it takes 1.0 seconds for people to know that I went to Bishop McNamara.
Yep.
And
Which I gotta respect you for that, man. That's an interesting place
I loved
to
it.
have gone to school. I have to pick your brain offline about exactly what the experience is like.
I
But
will.
Marty Keithline, the former AD and head coach,
Yeah.
is one of my close friends. I love him. I thought he was a phenomenal coach. I think
Yep.
he's a great AD. Some of the things, man, there was nothing like playing on a Friday night in McNamara. It was kind of like Carroll back in the day with the cheerleaders going crazy. The environment was always sold out. Unbelievable. I'll never forget. We played a game in there, and Alvin Brown at the time was Gatorade Player of the Year, WCAC Player of the Year. Ended up actually recruited by Penn State, but went to Xavier. He was he was in our senior class when we won it all. He had 42 at McNamara. It was a big time night.
Well, McNamara is a special place, and I love it. And I was gonna say like I'm still kind of here.
I
Um,
don't know about the special place part.
Oh, it's a
but
special play. But you know what? But to your point, I'm usually joined by two knuckleheads, Kevin and T. Of course, they've been best friends forever, DeMatha and St.
Yep.
John's. And what you said is what we always say. You spend 4 years beating each other up, and then you spend the rest of your life realizing how special it is to be from it. And then
Yep.
it's the tie that binds. And um, I was going to ask you, kind of being on that, you know, very high D1 tier of athletics in those
Yeah.
in that locker room with that level of athlete.
Yep.
Can you talk about is first of all do people talk about the WCAC? I mean, is it something people know
Oh, no
about?
doubt, man. Oh, are you kidding me? No. Throughout the nation, you can when we're recruiting in live periods, live AAU periods or live high school periods, whatever it may be in April, July, the big shoe events and things like that. You know, I sit obviously with every head coach in the country and also every assistant coach in the country. You talk specifically about the WCAC, about the level of competition from top to bottom. It's unlike anywhere else. Now, there are really good schools,
Yep.
really good programs in other cities across the country, but nothing compares to the coaching and the level of athlete consistently. Every year, every school has multiple high major, not just D1, that's a given, but multiple. Specifically this year. There's 4 or 5 teams in the WCAC that have 3 to 4, some 5 to 6 high major basketball players, and it's known throughout. And it also helps, obviously, on the AAU scene. You have a number of like Team Durant is filled with some of those Team Takeover.
Yep.
You know, there's DC Premier, so you have some of the best AAU organizations from the DMV, and a lot of the kids that are shining on those programs are from WCAC schools. So, you know, it gets national attention unlike any other high school league in the country. And I've recruited, you know, obviously everywhere. I've coached at Villanova, so I'm big into the Catholic League in Philadelphia, which is pretty awesome too. And I got to be honest with you, the Palestra, the Final Four at the Palestra at the end of February every year is one of the coolest environments I've ever seen on any level. And that's a high school, you know, it's like the WCAC championship, how they have it at AAU. Well, they hosted the Palestra, which seats almost 9,000 to 10,000, and it's sold out. You can't even get tickets. That's
awesome.
how much pride they take in their high school basketball. However, it just doesn't compare from top to bottom, the coaching. It's a college level environment, college level practices, college level run programs. And that's why those kids specifically, when you look at their success rate as freshmen early on, those kids are more apt to be successful as freshmen on the high major level because they've been coached and prepared physically and mentally to survive at that level. A lot of freshmen come in and they're just not ready physically or mentally to be consistent enough, specifically during the dog days in January and February. It's not the case in with kids from the WCAC. They thrive in those environments because they're just used to it coming out of high school, which is very rare.
Well, I'm speaking now for Strachan, who's typing in, who's extremely upset that he doesn't get to be here tonight when you're on the show for the first time. But
yeah, I gotta, you know, you might not know this, but I was the first ever recipient of the Tim Strachan Award of Maplewood football. I was the first ever. They felt bad because they didn't give me the Maplewood Boy of the Year because I played 95s instead of 110. So I got the first ever Tim Strachan Award in Maplewood football. So
that's very cool.
Connected.
Oh,
yeah.
So you got to come back on, and as he says, and as of course all of us, we know you'll be sitting in the first seat very soon, and we can't wait to have you on and talk about that. So, but I want to ask you because not everyone understands. They see first assistant, and they don't quite get like how big of a deal that is, especially at such a big program. Yeah. Maybe if you could just give us a little bit of a sense of how you got from the assistant coach's crew to the first assistant, and kind of what that means as far as your profession goes.
Yeah, you know what? I coached with Pat Chambers at Villanova. So when I was coaching at Gonzaga, I then took the video coordinator job as an intern for Jay Wright at Villanova. And the first guy I ever met on my interview was Pat Chambers, the head coach of Penn State, obviously, and my current boss. And he was the first guy I met. He's the baby of 12, Irish Catholic. I'm obviously Irish and Italian Catholic, 1 of 10, not boys and girl. And we hit it off immediately, right off the bat, the first day, on my first day. And as a result, just fortunately, right time, right place, I continued to bump up. But after 2 years, we had made it to the 2009 Final Four, and I was the director of operations at the time at Villanova, and Pat Chambers became the head coach at Boston University. He asked me to come along with him, but after consulting with Jay Wright at the time, it didn't make much sense because I was bumped up to an assistant position a year later at Villanova. So, and then when he got the job at Penn State, it was a no-brainer. Because when I got to Villanova, Jay Wright and his staff over the years have just, they are who they are. They've just done such an incredible job. But the early years of Villanova for Jay Wright are like most. It didn't happen right away. It took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears for those guys to get to the point when I walked in, Sweet 16, my first year, Final Four. They had reached the Elite Eight with Randy Foy and Kyle Lowry 2 years earlier,
Yep.
So, this is how it's supposed to work. This is easy. This is no joke. You just, show up and this is what happens. I knew that wasn't the case, and after much deliberation with Jay, I wanted to go be Pat's right-hand man in the Big Ten. I'd been at the Big East at the height of the Big East. I wanted to become a head coach, and in order to do so, learning how to build a program from scratch. Now, I didn't anticipate a lot of what goes on at Penn State, specifically in our first 6 months after the whole incident with Sandusky. And unfortunately, that's what happened. It set us back. But I've learned so much because of that. And I've been with Pat Chambers since a week literally after he accepted the job. And it's just 3 years after being an assistant with him, he promoted me to associate head coach, and I've been that ever since. And what it is essentially running the program. It's learning how to build a program from scratch, from top to bottom. It's making sure that the head coach essentially can focus on his relationships in the community, fundraising efforts, and also his relationship with each individual player. So I take care of our entire managerial staff. I take care of our entire staff. I do pretty much I'm in charge of recruiting, the day-to-day operations
awesome.
as far as scheduling and so on and so forth. So it's all of the 90% of what goes on in a high major level is not basketball. It's all of that stuff. So when you get to finally get onto the court each day for 2 hours or whatever it is, it's almost like therapy.
Well, I mean, so that's just cool. I mean, come on. I mean, we all have like our jobs and our what we have to do, and I think for the most part, none of us gets to be in charge of a awesome Division I, Big Ten, high major basketball program. So that's awesome. I mean, okay. So given what you're in charge of, and all of this happens, and everyone is kicked out of school, sent home.
Yeah.
Right. When things were going to be going a different
Yeah.
direction. So now what does your job do? Because I mean, you gotta. It's like
So
herding cats
it never
times
stops.
10, right?
Honestly, it's actually just become a little bit more interesting. For one, obviously it's pretty sad as to what's happening, and most importantly, everybody just needs to stay safe out there, and it puts things in perspective. This is a global crisis. Obviously we're just rooting and hoping everybody just stays out of harm's way and can get healthy once again and get back to normalcy. But technology is an incredible thing. So recruiting never stops. The NCAA has put stipulations and regulations on us until the middle of April. The Big Ten Conference has its own procedures as well. Most likely, we won't be allowed to recruit off campus or on campus or have any visits, anything like that, which is kind of interesting because the transfer portal is just incredibly active. There's something like 45 to 50 per day going into the transfer portal right now, and that's changed the landscape of college sports. So that's a whole other talking point.
Sure.
What we're doing is we're just communicating on a regular basis. We do Zoom calls 3 days a week with our staff, our entire staff. So that includes marketing, that includes our sports information, that includes our managerial staff, and then we do 3 days a week with just our coaches. To talk about a number of things. And then each week we'll meet. We have what's called a leadership council. So we have about 4 or 5 guys from a guy from each class. That's kind of like a cat. We don't have captains. We have leadership council. So we communicate with them on a Zoom call once a week. And then actually today was our first at 4 p.m. This afternoon. We put our team on a Zoom call, which every single week, and try to update them, communicate with them, see what's going on in each guy's lives. Just make sure we're connected. And technology is just an incredible way to do that. And then obviously recruiting, we're constantly making phone calls. We're constantly doing FaceTimes and things of that nature. We'll also do next week. We'll do a Zoom call with all of our current players' parents, and then we'll do another one with our incoming recruits' parents. Because all that. Summer one, we just don't have any timetable for when exactly guys are going to be able to come back on campus.
That's right.
It's kind of you got to be really organized in detail. Fortunately, we have an incredible staff that communicates on a regular basis, and all have their phenomenal skills and very good at each one. So we just bounce off each other. It's like any other major business.
Brian Sanders must make sure you understand he's not even in charge of his own house. I don't think any of us are even the first assistants in our own houses. I'm certainly not the first assistant. I'm on the staff. I'm confident I'm on the staff. Now I think it's a volunteer position because I don't. But it's a lot of fulfillment. I something we've been doing for the last year or so with First Amendment Sports. Did you put me on speaker there, Keith?
Yeah, you just keep breaking up. I'm sorry.
That's okay. The Gonzaga, the success of Gonzaga's athletic program over the last year has been super impressive, and of all the things that we've done, um, being able to showcase that school wasn't what we set out to do. It's just what happened because we were there and they were getting it on. I know you have a lot of pride on I Street, and I don't
No
want
doubt about it.
I don't want to to gloss over that. I think it's important, and I love the WCA. We love the WCAC, but yeah, Gonzaga's your school. They've done great. Steve Turner, by the way, is just one of the
One of the
classiest.
best, man.
He's
One of the
he's
best.
one of the, he's one of the
Coolest
best.
people. He's just the coolest people, man. His coaching speaks for himself. But a lot of the coaches in the WCC, that's what makes it the way it is. The coaches are they're just great coaches, but also really cool people. Mike Jones, Marty Keekline. There's just a number of them that are awesome. Glenn Farello. They're
Yeah.
all fantastic guys. But Steve Turner, obviously, I worked for him for 4 years. I think he's just done an incredible job. He does an incredible job developing relationships with his players and his staff. But he's just an awesome guy.
You should make sure he teaches you. He's got some moves on the sidelines. I was talking about it this year. It's like when the whistle blows. I mean, he's got ballerina slippers on the sideline. He's interpretively, showcasing his emotions via dance moves, and it's something I love about Steve a lot. And I'm sure he'll punch me in the face next time he sees me.
You gotta be careful. He popped his Achilles doing one of them at some point.
Oh,
I think it was last year.
yeah, I mean, I love him. Just to say one more thing about Steve, which I know you'll appreciate. Um, he's the first guy. So we get there to set up cameras and audio equipment for the WCAC tournament, and we're there the second they let us in American University. Me and my guys are there, and one other person is there with us, and like waiting to get in with us, and it's Steve Turner. Even in day two, after they took a tough loss, and the girls' final was first, the McNamara girls versus PVI girls. Once again, right there with us, waiting to get in. Just not a finer human being, and a great example of what's great about the WCAC. So I always want to make sure people understand that I'm not just here to talk up, Marco Clark and all my maroon and gold guys. But I got to ask you before I let you go, Keith. Um,
Yeah, man.
the So we're in this weird world of no sports that we're finding ourselves in, and it's weird, right? I mean, it's just weird. You need to turn on
Oh,
the
it's
TV.
strange.
It's
There's
it's
no doubt about it.
it's.
I mean, people are following virtual tournaments, virtual brackets online. That's the fix that we've all turned to.
I can't do
It's
it.
pretty wild.
I can't do it. I
I
know.
refuse to do it too.
I
I'm getting
refuse.
updates from our staff, but I can't do it.
I can't do it. But I assume you remain an NFL guy at heart, being from DC.
Oh yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
any comments on the way things have gone about specifically with your team, what you want to see happen with your boys? I know that I mean it's all we got. So and that we talk about it in the basement. That's kind of our basement discussion these days. And I wanted to give you a chance to chime in on what you're seeing and what you want to see.
Are you talking about our Redskins?
Oh yeah.
Oh, you know what? I love the Jack Del Rio hire. I love Ron Rivera. I think that's an unbelievable combination. If you look at their records, if you look at what they've done, everywhere they've been successful. So for the first time in a long time, I'm pretty excited about what's happened at the higher level with that. Now the question is, will they let them do their thing? That's always been the knock. And if they do, I feel firmly that they're on the rise for sure. I think, obviously Chase Young, I got to see him personally on the field at Penn State. He is just,
He's a monster.
I'm praying to God that they make that move. I think they will, and I think he's a game changer. I really do. And I think that's something they're lacking. When's the last time, Kerrigan was pretty good, obviously had a number of sacks, and he but he was always hurt. I felt like, he wasn't. He was always a good player, right? You always loved him, but he wasn't like the old days, like the Dexter Manleys, Wilbur Marshalls coming off, and the Charles Mann back in the day when the defensive line was just the edges. You just couldn't do anything on the ground, and you knew if you dropped back, you were getting blindsided. I think Chase Young brings something like that. I think he's old school. Man, I really do. So I like some of their pieces. I'm hoping they've given Haskins a chance to continue to evolve. I thought the end of the year was very promising. Look, he's got a learning curve. It is what it is.
Yep.
Obviously the two guys on the other line, Kevin and Tim know more about that than I do. But the learning curve is obviously extremely steep. And I thought they did a good job providing him with a simple playbook towards the back end of the year, and he showed dramatic promise. I liked his fiery attitude on the sidelines. So I hope his development, obviously we're not there, we're not in the meeting rooms, but if he can retain the information and continue to grow, I love the future. I really do. I'm not like any of the other, some of the cynical ones that are down on him. I think you can only go up. You can only get better. So, and I live in the land of the Eagles land, so I can't stand it. Eagles in Pittsburgh, and it's hard because they've been really good the last few years. So I got to fight my battles as much as I possibly can.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think that you'll find a good home for optimism in this group, and we're all on the same page with Haskins. I think he's got to be someone who continues to get more opportunities. I want to be honest because Kevin Ricca, who also says hello, and we've all kind of voted you into
right there.
first team all nice. You're on that team, and
I appreciate that.
It's
Tell that to my wife right now.
But
it's quarantine situation.
But I have been toying with, and I have to be honest. I'm officially kind of on the side of the line where I take two extra first rounders and a second rounder to trade down for the Redskins, because I think we're that many players away at bare minimum. But that being said, I love Chase Young. I love the idea of bringing a WCAC monster on the. If the Washington Redskins draft Chase Young, I'm sold, hook, line, and sinker. If they trade down, I think we get better. But I'm just with you. The first thing you said to me is the most important thing. Dan Snyder said he's going to go to a coach-centric model, and he brought in the only best coach that was available to execute that model. And
he went and got one of the best assistants. I mean, his defensive scheme, his defensive record speaks for itself, man.
Yep. And when you're going to put two guys like that in charge, part of me understands why it would be a really awesome thing to put Chase Young on that squad, because I know that those two particular individuals won't waste that, I guess is the best way to say it.
Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think is the most important position on the defense at this stage?
So I'm a strength up the middle guy on offense and defense. On offense, center, quarterback, running back, and on defense, up the middle on the line, linebacker and safety. So if I'm going to say that, when we were running and I hate the 3-4 versus 4-3 thing. We had this conversation the other night. Just give me your best 11 and put them on the field and make them successful. But when we had last year was a more linebacker centric scheme. You have more linebackers in the field. This next year we'll have more defensive linemen, and if that's the case, then the edge rusher is the guy. I mean, you have to have an edge rusher.
It just feels like that guy is the one who makes mediocre or not average. I don't want to say mediocre or average, but good. He makes good defensive backs great because they have to do a lot less in a lot less time when you're putting pressure on the quarterback with a guy like that. And what's different with him, just watching him over the years at Penn State and against Ohio State, and knowing he's WC, he's so versatile. He can move around and play different positions. He can play both sides. I mean, it's just he's just a different breed, man. It's hard. It's like almost like a LeBron James or Zion Williamson type talent on the football field, and it's really hard to pass that up.
I mean, I feel like you're winning. Tim and Kevin, if they're like throwing up in their mouth watching me, him and Hall, on this, but you're 100% right. I don't know that Montez. I mean, I know that Montez Sweat isn't Chase Young. I don't know how good Montez Sweat can be in this league. I know that part of me desperately wants to see Chase Young coming from one side and Montez Sweat coming from the other. That to me sounds pretty enticing, especially with
Yeah,
Payne Allen and Ioannidis and Tim Settle, running, running amok in between them, for three downs. So I don't know. I don't know, Keith. I mean, I feel like the Washington Redskins are the kind of team that if they have a good draft and they get, maybe one or two more players in free agency that can compete for jobs, like competing for a wild card or potentially competing for an NFC East crown, which
not that difficult
it's
right
not
now.
that difficult these days, is not out of the question. So I guess the last thing I'll ask you about the Redskins is the whole Trent Williams thing. I mean, where do you come out on that? What do you think's going to happen, and what would you want to see happen?
I can't imagine he comes back. I just can't imagine. I think the damage is done. I think it's tough. It's interesting. I'm not in DC, so I don't know honestly how the fan base and the locals have reacted towards him, whether or not they're hoping he comes back or not. I you know, personally, I think he made his decision already, the way that he acted. But again, I'm not inside the organization, so who knows um, if he had just cause to, I don't know. I'm not in the inside, but it just seems to me like it's just kind of it's a foregone conclusion
It's
and he's
over.
moving on, and it's probably the best thing for the fan base and the organization. But again, I'm not inside that locker room, so I don't know how his teammates feel. And quite honestly, that's really what it matters. I mean, if the guys in that locker room want him back and they know the type of talent he is, I think it comes down to those guys wanting him back. And if they feel like they can be successful with him and he can bleed, the burgundy gold again, then so be it. But I think that's really what matters. It's hard for us to say exactly because we don't know what's going on in the inside unless you guys do.
Well, I can't pretend that I'm not on the inside either. I have limited access from Hawks Haven, but there's nothing that I'm hearing about that's much different than what we all hear about, which is basically like a huge rift between him and Bruce Allen and the team. Everything that he was rifting with is pretty much gone except for Dan Snyder. Ron Rivera, I think, knows intimately that the Washington Redskins are much better off with Trent Williams on the field. And Trent Williams' business people, who are no dummies, know intimately that if he has the opportunity to sign a new contract with somebody, it's going to set the left tackle market. So I think, the good news for the Redskins is if they have to
Is
get
he
rid of.
not injury prone though? Has he not gone through a number of injuries
Well,
each and every year? I mean, doesn't
he
that
has
affect
missed time. I
what the
think that.
market could be? I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
he's
And he's
30.
gotten older. He's a little bit older now too, right?
Yeah, but he's 31. If he's serious about
A
it,
lot of wear and tear, man.
he could play for another 3 or 4 years. I don't know at what level. I think he has another 2 good years left in him, real good years, and then I don't know if he. I mean, you're sitting. I mean, Andrew Whitworth just signed a 3-year, I believe, $30 million contract. He's got. I think he's going to be 38, 39 years old. I mean, so the
Yeah,
really good left tackles, of which Trent Williams counts himself among,
and
they
he is.
yeah, that prime kind of extends out. He just took a year off. I think that matters. The Redskins can get value for him if they have to move him. Someone's going to give them something for him because Trent Williams is worth it. And that's like the best possible news, I guess, if we're not going to have him in at left tackle
Yeah,
on day one. Um,
yeah.
but T wants to make sure, and I always make sure I repeat it. I won't leave T hanging. He is very sorry that you had to do this with just me, but that means you had to come back on a Tuesday night or the next night
I
when we're all
hope to,
here.
man. I look forward to coming back. I will definitely come back for sure.
And maybe when this thing's all over and we can all be back in the same room together, maybe you can hang out with us in the basement and we'll talk a little bit of high school glory years.
It would be awesome. I had a lot of them, man. We won 4 championships my senior year at Gonzaga, so
I
I got
know.
nothing. Four, maybe
I,
four.
I I see how I just lobbed it. I just threw it right in the strike zone, and what'd you do? You knocked it over the fence, and your hair is
I mean, we
waving
just won
behind
four. There's
you.
no denying that. The banners are up inside the community center, so there's really no denying it. There's no arguing. It's a fact. So I got nothing to pray.
Did you leave a lock of that hair taped to that banner? It's got to be somewhere.
To be the only one out of 9 boys with no hair, I got to be honest with you. It really is. So, I'm the shortest, and I'm the only bald one. But hey,
you're doing great, buddy. You're doing great. Thank you so much for making some time for us tonight. And we're like I said before, we're so proud of you. And we appreciate you, and we wish you the best. And we can't wait to celebrate news that will be coming soon at some point in our future. About Keith Urgo sitting in that captain's chair where you belong, my friend.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks, Kev. Thanks, Tim, and everybody listening. I appreciate it, and stay safe, man.
You
really
too.
Do, and I appreciate all of you guys. I look forward to seeing you guys sometime soon.
Yes, sir. Have a great one, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Thanks, Kev.
All right, there you have it, Brian and Andrew and T and all you folks hanging out with us. On a Friday night, giving a little bonus coverage. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for catching us. Please, as Keith said, stay safe. Help yourself by helping your neighbor and vice versa. We will get through this, and we will do it together. We're apart today. We'll be back together soon. Thank you so much, and we'll be back, if not sooner, certainly on Tuesday. Thanks, guys. On behalf of First Amendment Sports, he's Benjamin. There, Kevin and T. I'm Ken Marangolo, and this was the WCAC Spectacular. Still live, Brian Sanders.